To be free you must set others free too. Murdo MacDonald-Bayne. John 14:7. If you knew me you would know my Father too. You know him now and you have seen him. I and the Father are one. Much of the teaching today, in fact most of what you hear and read, place the emphasis on controlling your thoughts. Is this not living in conflict? Controlling your thinking is contraction. One may control one's thoughts, yet remain in limitation and separation. Unless you can discern what your thoughts are and how they arise, you only put your freedom further away. Does not most of the truth literature you read give you instruction on how to make your demonstrations on the physical plane? There is much of this misleading material written and spoken by those who know nothing about themselves. Yet they expound ways and means of how to get things. The advocating of the so-called spiritual teaching is a worthless imitation of the real. Only when you can discern the false from the real will you free yourselves from that which is deceiving millions through this senseless nonsense. The world is full of these ignorant people who boast of their manifestation as a proof of the truth, but let them lose all their possessions and see where they stand. Their foundation is laid upon shifting sands of craving. Then they will tell you that they do not believe in a God anymore. They say a God of love could not do a thing like that to me. Their belief in their outside God destroys the experiencing of reality. It is most difficult for people to think this way because of their conditioning, and their belief gives them a sense of satisfaction. If they do not find satisfaction in things, in beliefs, they create the super idea of a God. But is their God not a self-made God which they have fabricated in the mind? But if we would really experience the unknowable which is not of time, we would not cling to a belief which is but a self-projected image. Anything that is named is not real, it is the outcome of memory, of conditioning, and if it is of time then it is still part of the mind, for the mind is the result of the past, of the various influences, religions, social and educational environment. If we understand the conditioning in which we live and the influences in which we are caught up, that understanding brings about a tranquility of the mind. Mind is not made still by force, nor can it be made still through control. If your mind could be made still in this way, it would be a dead mind. When you try to make your mind still through discipline, it may be superficially still, but at the same time it is in a state of agitation like a child put in a corner. Only when we understand the whole process of belief, and the search for permanency, when we understand this whole process fully, then the mind is quiet. You do not have to make it quiet. You are the mind, you are the thinker as well as the thought. When you try to separate yourself from your thought, you then try to control your thought. It is this that leads to illusion and fear. We think we understand people by giving them a name, a German, a Jew, a Russian, an Englishman, a Hindu and so on. But if I do not call you by a name, I am not prejudiced, then I can look more closely, and by doing so can understand you. Is it not so that you are already prejudiced when you hear the words Russian, German, Jew, English, Afrikaans and so on? When you understand your prejudice, then it drops away and true relationship comes into being. If you have a belief, are you not prejudiced against another belief no matter how you try to hide the fact? But when you begin to read your mind with all its influences, you will see what lies behind your belief. Then you will begin to understand, not only yourself but you will also begin to understand the other. So to help another I must see the other not belonging to this nationality or belief or to this or that, but to see him as he is, free. For if I am myself caught up in my own petty narrowness, in my nationality, my belief, my society and ridiculous superstitions, my own nonsense, I see him only through my own conditioning. To understand one another we must look at each other free from all this stupid nonsense. Then we will have relationship with the other, then only can we help one another. And this requires an awakened consciousness. An awakened consciousness is a consciousness that is aware of the false, aware of that which is hiding the real. We do not create the real is experienced only when we understand that which is not real, and how it comes into being. Not until we have a true recognition of this can we expect to have the power, wisdom, and love of reality. When this is reached, we realize that there is no limitation, only an expanding in infinity in which we exist. A God that is separate from yourself is no God at all. Yet the majority of people, including your religious teachers, are merely at this stage. This is the thing that eludes the intellectuals. Their God is a God they want to comprehend intellectually. So it is just an image, an idol, a creation of the mind. So the reality of the teaching of Jesus is submerged in a sea of sanctimonious formalities that hide the real. That is why many churches today are but semi-political institutions teaching separation, distrust, and antagonism. They condemn Sunday sport but engage in the diabolical sport of fostering antagonisms and hatreds. How is it possible to have peace when man's religious life is saturated with suspicion and superstition? Matter, we find, is energy solidified in form. Energy is the intelligence in action and consciousness is the director. Our relation to the universal mind is as ice is to water and water is to steam, therefore there is no separation anywhere. The invisible is not separated from the visible, the ice is the water as water is the ice, and water is to steam as steam is to water. With this understanding we realize the truth of what Jesus said, all power is given unto me in heaven and on earth. When we understand the cause of our limitations, our feeble efforts will be dropped. Then the consciousness of life with thought, its messenger, will be seen clothed in form. It will not be seen as something outside reality but in reality itself. When you have seen me you have seen the Father. We must think for ourselves and not allow others to do our thinking for us. But this is what others do not want us to do. As long as you are prevented from thinking for yourself you will be dominated by others. The infinite and his thought are one. In this way the world system is kept in operation. This is universal mind in action, and is the mind that supplies the power to our minds when we dissolve our sense of separation. As electricity supplies the power to the dynamo, so does the universal mind supply the power to the mind of man. The switch is the consciousness that is aware. We are not separated, and in that knowing so does the power act accordingly in the mind of man, and when we realize this we dispense with limitation because we know how we have limited ourselves. Man is created by God, therefore God and man are one, for there is no outside of God. He could not create anything outside himself, being infinite in nature. Do you now know that you are God's sanctuary and that the Spirit of God is his home in you, 𝗨 3:16. The question that arises is, can we live without an idea? We can understand this when we understand what an idea is. Surely you have learned by now the process of ideas and how they come into being? They are temporary and changeable and pass away because you know what they are. It is only that which you do not know that is real and stable, eternal and ever-present. What I am telling you is, that without knowing yourself there can be no real experiencing of the real. It is not that you must substitute one belief for another or become an atheist, which is but another form of belief. To understand the whole process of believing is the beginning of wisdom. Nothing can lead you to the truth except the understanding of yourself. When you are beginning to see that which is false you are beginning to see that which is true, and that which is true has no division. There are two sides to a coin, one is the head and the other the tail, both are on the same coin. Good and evil is the same, you cannot separate them, they are both in the mind at the same time, are they not? When you desire the good you fear the evil. When you understand this they both drop from you, and reality, which is not of the mind, but which is love, wisdom, and power, comes into being. He who possesses my commands and obeys them is he who loves me, and he who loves me will be loved by my Father and I will love him and appear to him. John 14:21, Moffat. Benediction. O wisdom, thou art my guide. O love, thou art my life. Only when I began to see the false did I begin to see the true. When I accepted what others said I lost the power to think. When I believed as I did not know why I believed. So I was caught up in the net of my own conditioning. O wonderful wisdom, as I opened myself to thee so didst thou reveal myself to myself. O wonderful love, thou didst flood my heart with thy sweetness and I saw the beauty of thy holiness. Now, O wisdom, I see my brother stripped of all conditioning as I myself have been freed. Now, O love, my nature thou hast made complete with thy sweet holiness, O divine One. My peace and my love remain with you. Yours very sincerely, Murdo MacDonald-Bayne.